Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome to the show, everybody. We got a great show for you today. Very informative, I hope, but more so than that, just a lot of fun, because the gal that we have with us has been around doing some great stuff. She's an author now, and she helps people, and I'm going to have her describe herself to you. Marva Bailer is our guest. She's the author of the book, Be Unexpected. And we're going to talk about that in depth and all about her. So, Marva, tell us a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind, por favor.
Hi, Kevin. I'm coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia. And it's a great place. And I'm actually from Maryland, so I like my seafood steamed, not boiled, and not fried at all. Yeah, so that's how I like my seafood. I've been in the tech industry for years, and you know that out in Seattle, because that's where Amazon is based, and a lot of other big tech companies. And now I'm doing board work and doing a lot of fun. I call it bucket list or opportunity list. So TED Talk and ringing the bell at NASDAQ and having my daughter get married and, like all the cool stuff that you're like, when can I do all these things? Even losing 10 pounds, like all the things that you never get to do, I'm doing them all.
Good for you. Good for you. I got to ask you, when you were at NASDAQ and you got to ring the bell, I hope, because I've watched them sometimes. They'll show when the Dow is taking a big hit for the day, and then they'll do people doing the ringing of the bell, and they're all clapping, and they're all. Yeah, I hope the day was up for you when that happened, and the Dow was going well.
It was amazing. So it was with Just Capital, and Just Capital has the Just Index, and that's what rates companies on social impact and employee engagement. And actually, Hewlett Packard was winning it at the time. And they literally said, "Okay, we're going to do the countdown, 1, 2, 3," and then we all had to go. and also, by the way, spoiler alert, it wasn't a bell. The CEO pressed a button.
They don't have a bell anymore? Oh, man. That's modern technology. It's changed so much, And so that's great. And you've also been on Fox News, and you've been on TMZ, and that had to be quite the call. You were telling me before we began that you get this call, and then the producer of this particular show, and he says, "Can you come on at the top of the hour?" And then so you had like 40 minutes to prepare. What was that like?
Yeah, so when you're getting ready for news, you really have to be prepared, and you basically have to be always on. And you need to be able to have quick sound bites to distill the facts so people can understand what it is they need to pay attention to. And then besides what you see when I'm talking to you, I'm also prepping the on-air talent. So what makes me most proud, I just did a story, I won't say who it's for, last week about the healthcare bill and the interoperability between the healthcare systems and the electronic health record. And it made me so proud because everything the anchor said about cybersecurity in your health record, the whole script was exactly what I said in my pre-interview. So that's what makes me proud, is I'm really educating and helping really the news people get the right news out there.
Well, and that's really good, because there's a segment that call it fake news, but we won't go there. It's not important. But I'm so glad that you're doing what you're doing. Let's talk about your book a little bit. What caused you to write it?
So at the time I was working for a company called Splunk that now got bought by Cisco, and they're in the big data, and now they're very, very big in cybersecurity space, because cybersecurity requires a lot of data, and it's called unstructured data. So I was involved with this big tech company, global, 7,000-8,000 employees. And we work with all kinds of clients, anyone that you can imagine, from the government to tech companies themselves. And so I was working with the sales teams, anywhere from interns to technology people, and working with them really on how to communicate to executives and own their presence. And people are like, you know what? You have this thing called Marva Magic. You should write it down. I'm like, okay. And then during COVID, I was very bored, not traveling. And someone said, if you have 5 speeches, you can write a book. And so I had about 7 speeches. So I was able to type. And this is before Grammarly and before ChatGPT. And I type. And I hired a great editor, a copy editor, fact editor, grammar editor, and got published. And now I'm a book author.
Which is great. And the premise behind the book is, and go ahead and tell us.
It's really about being unexpected, and it's how to break this polite society norms that are so routine, automatic, autopilot, and really to think about how we approach as simple things like introductions or shaking someone's hand or following up on a meeting or getting someone that maybe doesn't have a strong voice to be able to get their voice heard. So some of these little nuances that are always unnoticed sometimes, I really dive deep into that. So I have 6 chapters on how to introduce yourself. 6 chapters. So over 150 words, a lot of words.
Well, you know what they say, I don't know who says it, but somebody says it, that you only have one time to give a first impression.
That's right.
And it's important, especially in the sales world, if you're going to be talking to somebody that you're trying to sell something to, the first thing they know is this person is trying to sell me something. Right. And so there is this barrier there from the very beginning of the conversation that you have. How do you encourage people to break through that barrier? Because that is an important aspect, because then they'll remember you.
Exactly. So Kevin, the first autopilot we all go on is we say our name, title, and company, and specifically to sales, people tend to, and I was a customer for a long time as well. I had, a multi-million-dollar budget, and it would drive me crazy when technology salespeople, and I really tried to mentor them. Hi, Kevin, I'm Marva, your account rep, and I've never bought anything from you before. So I would challenge you. I was like, great, Kevin. So what business have we done together? You're like, no, I'm just assigned your account. It's like, okay, you're not my account rep. And, you'll see that with financial professionals. They'll be like, hey, Kevin, I'm your mortgage lender. And you're like, no, I've never done business with you. So right off the bat, something as simple as how you introduce yourself, and when you put your title in there, that already can throw people off. And really, when you're introducing yourself, you want to lead with a question and lead with some kind of insight that starts that energy. Because like you said, the introduction, that 30 seconds, look at your podcast. If you didn't have the cool music, maybe people might not want to keep it on their streaming to hear you, but you have the cool
That's
music.
Right.
Your energy and your voice. So that energy and that kind of walk up energy that you have for your podcast and your show, that's what we need to have for business meetings. And people really need to think about that.
And people are generally so, when they go into a business meeting that they don't feel comfortable in, they are so scared that they're going to say or do something wrong, or that they're going to have flatulence, or I don't know what. And so they're very,
I don't know about that, but keep going.
I could have used another word, but I chose that one because it just came to mind. But they're scared, or they are uncertain about what your reaction is going to be. And I've was a sales guy for a long time, and there were people who took devilish delight in taking a new salesperson and then throwing them off the track by saying something like, I've always hated your company. And stuff like that. So how do you get people to be confident and to be unexpected, and to do something that is memorable and that nobody else expects?
Yeah, so just talked about kind of two sides of the coin. So the first one is, your positive intent. And now, buyers really are doing their own research. The LinkedIn has several studies on that. And I think it's up to about between 79 and 85% of buyers actually do research before they ever engage a salesperson. So your brand and your company is so important. And when you're going to enter into a business conversation with someone, you do want to have that mutual trust. So if someone is entering with this, hey, what do you got and whatever, I would just question even if that's going to be worth your time, because that's one thing I don't care if you're selling something very small, maybe $500 to something $50 million, your time is valuable too. So that's really important to know, that mutual respect always should be there. So we can get deeper into your ideas there, but that's my initial reaction to that question.
When you talk about mutual respect, how does a salesperson, now granted, the buyer has already done research on you, and probably more than about the research they're doing on you, but how do you throw them off the track to make your interview memorable? And different than I was a chicken salesman, and I'd go talk to national chicken company or national restaurant companies like TGI Fridays and Old Spaghetti Factory and those guys. And I had to make it different because there's a guy right behind me that's from Tyson, the big T, because it was a chicken company, that would already had everything planned out and all that. So I had to try and make it memorable and different. How do you teach people to do that? And can it be taught, or is it just a natural thing?
No, it absolutely can be taught. And I love that you're talking about chicken. So I'm from Maryland, and we also had a beach house at the Eastern Shore. And also I grew up even, from high school all the way to college, going to the Eastern Shore, which is chicken country. And now I live in Georgia, and the part of Georgia I live in, I believe, is the top chicken producing area in the country. So
it is. I think
so interesting you brought up chicken.
I think Purdue is there. I think that's where their headquarters
Everybody's
is.
there. They're all, and fun fact, the reason why I lost 10 pounds is I went to a functional doctor and found out I'm actually allergic to chicken and eggs.
Oh. So I'm sorry. I thought everybody loved chicken, except I was a chicken, and so we got lots of samples. So my kids, as they were growing up, hated chicken because that's what we had all the time because it was samples. So anyway,
so back to your question. So you just made it. So you started the question with a statement saying the customer's already done research on you, and your answer there is probably yes, because they're ready to make an investment or they're looking for a partnership. The surprising area that might blow your mind, or maybe not, is most salespeople don't do the research you would think they need to do. And it's just so interesting. Like right now, there's a whole study coming out. We're recording this episode. It's in August. And so a lot of stuff around college graduates and entering the job market and all these things. 100% of the time when I'm coaching someone looking for a job, you would be shocked that they haven't done their research. Now, when I say do the research, that doesn't mean going to look at someone's LinkedIn and looking at their 10K. That's not research. That's table stakes. That's like reading the cover of the book. You need to find something, to your point, that they care about, a value. So if you're selling chicken, most of those companies are family owned, or they've been there for a very long time, or they have economic impact in the community. You need to do your research. And that's what really differentiates person A over person B.
Yeah, because if you don't do your research, when I was brand new selling chicken, I got an appointment at IHOP, the national headquarters. And I called my boss and I said, I have an appointment at IHOP. And he said, how'd you do that? I've been trying to get an appointment with them for 6 months. And I said, well, I don't know. I just said that I had a fully cooked product that they might like. But I didn't do the research to find out the size and the specs and everything. So when I went there, she said, well, this is a specs, this is a size. And I said, oh, I don't know that I can, I don't know if I've got that. So it turned out to be a pointless exercise, because what I should have done, which I did later on, was before I would go talk to somebody, I always visited one of the restaurants, looked at the menu, ordered the chicken products to see if it was a good fit for me, so that then I could walk in and say, I was just in your In-N-Out Burger in Hollywood, and I got to tell you, the chicken that I had was this, and it was like that, and it was great, or it wasn't, and stuff like that. So, research is key, isn't it?
It's key. And back to your very, very first question about what happens when someone's being kind of, they're trying to be tough, or something they saw on TV on how to negotiate. And when you're a customer, when you are a customer, that shifts the lens. So I was once working with a large grocery chain, not to be named, and they were very, very, very tough negotiators. And I literally went to the store and I said, here's my receipt on the Zoom call. I went to store 224 in Cumming, Georgia. This is what I bought. And by the way, Target's right near, Kroger's right near. I could have went to those, but I chose to go to your store because of these reasons. And they're like, it flipped. They were like, oh, she's a customer. And not only is she a customer, she's a customer we want. She's in our demographic. She's, actually knowledgeable about our products and services. And then the whole conversation just changes. And I've told people to do that all the time. And it can get kind of fun too, especially with, I'm in hair and beauty. I love hair and beauty. Go test out all their products. Or, I'm here in Atlanta, and we have like Delta Airlines is a big airline here. And, you meet anyone from Delta, and they just so appreciate that they're using your product and service.
Exactly. And they also appreciate that you can look at them and say that you've actually been in their store. Because a lot of times, somebody won't even been in the store to see where it is or all that kind of stuff. So it's really important. By the way, we're talking with Marva Bailer. And if you go to her website, which is Marva, MARVA, Bailer.com, I do believe, correct?
That's correct. Simple.
And you can get her book, and you can look at some of the videos that she's done with national news outlets and stuff. Very intelligent. She talks a lot about AI, which we're probably going to end up getting into a little bit, but I wanted to touch bases with her on this first. But let me take this break, and we'll be right back. It's just 45 seconds, so nobody go anywhere.
You became a real estate agent for freedom, success, and real momentum. So why are you still stuck waiting for closings to save you? I'm Ophir Adar, founder of Real Momentum, and I help agents like you become seven-figure earners. My first client that I coached, brand new agent, made $250,000 back in 2006. What's the secret? You feed your white wolf. That's the part of you that's bold and unstoppable and a closer and able to build rapport quickly. So click Get Listings at Real Momentum and let's unleash your real estate potential.
And welcome back, everybody. We're talking with Marva Bailer. And Marva, have you ever heard of the concept of feeding your white wolf?
I have never heard of the concept of feeding your white wolf. I've heard of the Wolf on Wall Street, but I haven't heard of it.
Well, it's an old Cherokee proverb, and
yes, yes, because I watched all the shows with Kevin Costner, and I watched all the Montana shows, and
oh yes, and feeding your white wolf was there's your dark side and your light side, and you get to choose. And the boy said, "Well, how do you know which one's going to win, the dark or the light?" And he said, "It's the one you feed." So in this case, you feed your white wolf, and good things are liable to happen. At least that's what Ophir says in the commercial. So I guess, and it's a commercial on my show, so it has to be right.
Yeah, it's good. And actually, I was thinking when I was watching his segment. So you notice he said a point first, and then he said his name. But if he had started and said, "Hi, I'm Ophir, I have this company," you wouldn't have paid any attention. Same It goes the same.
Phrasing is huge.
Yeah, a little switch.
Yeah. Well, and because if you've got to hook them in. Is it? I don't know if that's a fair term to use because
No, it's not hook. It's literally break the trance. Just people are just in a trance. So it's not. You're not trying to do anything manipulative. You're literally trying to break the trance.
well, and if you do it right, and it helps if you present yourself well and you're articulate and you have a really good idea about what it is that you're trying to do when you go to a place, that's pretty helpful all by itself, isn't it?
It is, and it's also, your show is about being positive. You have to have positive intent. If you're going to get something, it's not going to work. You have to go to give something. I'll repeat that. You have to go to give something.
Exactly. And that explain a little bit about what that means when you're going to give something. It's not like you're going to give them like $20, although you might, but it's like, well, are you going to give them information or knowledge that they didn't have before that they find interesting?
You're going to give them information and knowledge. You're going to ask them a lot of great questions. And to your first example, of where you said that you were trying to offer a solution, then you realized you actually didn't have the specifications or the inventory on hand, and you weren't going to be a good fit. And having that level of honesty can get you far, because you never know who's married to who's neighbors with who's mom and dad of who. You don't know. And also now in today's world, it's a lot of mergers and acquisitions. Companies are folding, rebranding, getting acquired by private equity. So you don't know who's going to work for who. So you might not have made that connection and partnership or sale at that moment in time, but because you cared about what was important to them, they will remember that.
And don't think that they don't take notes, because whether they do it in front of you or not, they know what you said. So the next time that you come in, if it's a whole another year, they'll know what you said last time. And then if you say something different, then you lose your credibility.
Right.
And credibility in your world, how big is credibility? My
world, I don't care if you're in high-tech sales selling millions of dollars or you're on the news, credibility is really 100%. You have to be authentic. You have to be confident, and you have to care about who you're working with, because if you're not doing that, then you're not going to be credible. So yes, credibility to me is everything, because credibility also equals integrity as far as I'm concerned, and integrity is non-negotiable.
I've been a news junkie for a long time, and I've watched a lot of interviews of people, and it's not that they're intentionally misleading sometimes, but sometimes they just don't have the accurate information. So having accurate information is really important to your credibility, isn't it?
It's hugely important, and it's so. Now we have such a fast-moving news cycle. I was recently at a concert, and the artist that was performing said, "You know what? I'm going to say." He did something. He said something funny. He goes, "This is going to be on TikTok literally instantaneously." He goes, "Before at least YouTube, I had a couple weeks," and that's true. So everything's instantaneous, and it also can be edited, and it can be out of really out of context. So when you are reporting actual news, you really do have to understand the facts. And I'm actually starting a doctorate, and I had to take this quantitative analysis class this summer. And the way that you even get data. So if I look at a study, I already knew, if you look at a study, it has to have at least 100 or 500, whatever the sample size. I already had some general idea of that. But now I'm looking at this data even more critical. So even if you do hear a news story and it has a graph and it looks super authentic, it might not really have been a full sample. So that might also make it not as credible. So there's so many nuances that people, they just don't have the time and effort to really go through it. So we all need to be accountable.
I had to laugh. One time my brother, when he was still here, he's passed away now, but he said, this happened. And I said, "Where did you hear that?" And he said, "Oh, I saw it on the internet." It's like, so you can't, you need, even with the internet and even with AI and all the technologies, don't you need to do your due diligence and to really do your own research to find out necessarily? Because there's a lot of ambiguity out there.
Yeah, and we're recording this show in 2025. We have 4 major platforms that most people get their news and their information sharing on. I don't know, next year there could be totally different ones, or there could be a new one that everyone says, this is the expert. And so that's why it's really important that you just really, again, it's everything, and everything's not a critical decision. It's not. So that's the other thing. We don't have time. So sometimes it might be entertainment, or it might be a conversation starter, but everything is not fact. And that's why we definitely have to do our homework, depending on the scenario.
I got to ask you, because, nobody's asked me to be on CNN or MSNBC or TMZ or Fox. I'm pretty sure they won't ask me to go on Fox. But anyway, do they prep you in a way of like, make sure you're smiling and make sure you've got something snappy to say and that you get right to the point? Are they direct in that way?
No, you have to get your own media training. And so I'm media trained. I had an excellent coach, and I'll give her a shout out. Her name's Lynn Smith. If anyone wants to contact her, I'm more than happy to share her contact details. She was on the Today Show on CNN. And you actually named all the points. How do you look snappy? How do you have your sound bites? What do you do? I mean, it is terrifying when you're literally sitting there waiting for the Zoom to start, and you see like a little red light on your computer, and then boom, you're literally on the news. You don't know what you look like. And by the way, they don't tell you what they're going to ask you. So you really, really have to be ready. And then you need thick skin after, because some of the segments that appear to be live aren't live. They're actually, pre-recorded and edited and whatever. And you don't know what they're going to edit and what they're going to say that you said, and what question they're going to ask with your answer. And so you really have to have a trusted relationship with the producer, and then you have to do your homework to prep them so they can really tell a cohesive story. So there's a lot to being on the news that a lot of people I don't think are aware of. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it. It is worth it, because we need all different voices out there.
No, I couldn't agree more. And just for those of you that aren't familiar with editing processes, they now are, I edit my own stuff in commercials and different things that I do. And you can make anybody say anything that you want them to say and make it sound like it's them saying it, having that thought in their mind of what they're saying. And you can create it all for them. And there are some nefarious sources out there that can do that. So you do have to be really careful, don't you?
Yeah, well, no, well, yes and no. So the major news outlets aren't going to take your voice and re-record it and make a fake segment. They absolutely aren't going to do that. But you should be careful, because I signed up to do your podcast because you are a credible source. But there was another podcast that literally, and it was great. A lot of people I know are on it, but their terms of service literally said that they could use my image and likeness and voice in perpetuity for whatever they wanted. So in that case, yes, I would have signed my life away, and they could literally do whatever they want and say whatever they want. And I think a lot of people don't really understand that, and they sign up for different programs. It could be doing a podcast, or it could be as simple as like one of those emoji programs, and they sign up and put all this information and photographs, and then somehow they show up in an ad somewhere, and they're getting no monetization, and it's a brand they don't even support. So yes, you do have to be careful with what you sign and who you're working with. Oh,
it is such a minefield out there. You have to be, you almost have to be a marketing gal and a lawyer and a product specialist, and all of these things wrapped up into one person. It makes it hard.
Absolutely. Well, and 99% of us don't read the terms of service. The average terms of service. So, you mentioned AI. And so the personal AI tools, for making PowerPoints or these fun emojis and ads that look like there's a birthday cake with a dog and whatever. Some of them look really fun and cool. Some of their terms of service are actually up to 20 minutes to read their terms of service. They're that long. So, and people don't read them. And then also people don't read the ones that their kids are using, and then they wonder what the heck is happening. So it's something that we definitely need to start paying more attention to with our data privacy and, to your point, our image and likeness.
Well, when we come back from this break, this is our halftime, and I want to talk a bit about AI because it's out in the news and everybody's concerned about it and stuff. I would love to know. I'd love to get your opinion because you're very smart and you're versed in this and you know a heck of a lot more than I do about it. Where's it all going and where are we going to end up? If you have any thoughts on that. So Marva Bailer is here. Go to marvabailer.com. Get her book, Be Unexpected. That's right. Be Unexpected.
Be Unexpected.
Yes. And we'll be right back after this halftime break. Stay with us.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Brachelle's out sick today, and Marva Bailer is with us. Go to marvabailer.com. You can find out all about her. By the way, you are lovely. You've got a great smile. You've got great energy. It's awesome to have you here. But I want to tell you that I was having a conversation with my sister, who's a little older than me, and she was telling me that, because I was saying, I don't know that AI could reproduce my voice and my inflection and my intonation and what I was. And she said, "Oh no, they're going to be able to sound just like you and be a lot smarter than you." And I said, "Well, that wouldn't be hard, but is that true? Is AI going, and especially for entertainment and podcasting and all of that, is it going in that direction where I thought I had a very unusual sounding voice, but apparently I don't, at least according to her. What do you think?"
That's going to be up to you, Kevin. There's already a lot of actors, voice actors, and as well as regular actors that have already decided to license their voice, and they're using it. They're reimagining it. That's really what I think people have to start thinking. So right now you can do whatever, 6 shows a week and for 2 hours, and that's it. But what if those kids from Covenant House, you have this beautiful, sad but beautiful advertisement from a group, Covenant House. What if they could interact with a database that had all your podcasts, and they could be asking questions about, I'm thinking about this today, and then Kevin comes in, whatever, you might have a different name, and comes and helps them. That could be a very interesting product and service that you now offer. So that's what people are doing. They're trying to reimagine themselves. And companies are using AI agents. Like, you probably know this company. There's like this company, Chubbies. They make the bathing suits. They're kind of
Yes.
short shorts. Yeah, and so they actually named their chatbot because people a little uncomfortable. They want to return their bathing suit, or they don't know if it fits right, or it doesn't look right, and they don't want to talk to some customer service agent, let alone a woman if they're a guy. And so now they have this chatbot, and they actually made it a brand. So you can have fun with it and make it a brand, not make it something that's copied from you. And then back to your sister, I can literally list several 80 and 90-year-olds that are amazing, amazing book authors. And if anyone wants to message me, I'm more than happy to share their work. And they're making conscious decisions because they have libraries and libraries of information, and they want to leave a legacy where someone can access their information in their voice and their tone and access their information. So I would just say you need to think of new ideas, not replacing something.
So when we talk about AI and what the potential is, we need to kind of reinvent the idea of what we are doing, or because I just love, I've got 1,150 shows in the Positive Talk catalog. And if I had an AI program attached to it that could say, if you want to find out more information about this, then this would be in this episode that they could reference then quickly,
Right.
rather than going through 1,150 episodes.
Right, exactly. And then again, it would be a closed system. It'd be just your data. So it's not out there that someone else could steal it or whatever. And it's, because again, it's about monetization and about brand quality. Those two items are probably what you're most concerned with. And you can solve for all that. And so I don't think people are thinking that. I think a lot of people, especially generalists, they just kind of think, oh, ChatGPT was sort of like just using the internet. Like, hey, I'm just going to look something up. It's not what it is. A simple use case. Let me explain a simple use case that is so relatable. So back to documents we have to read. So pretend you worked at Walmart. You're one of the billion employees of Walmart. Guess how many pages Walmart's benefits package is?
Oh, I'd say 60 or 70, maybe more.
Try 300. Last count.
Jeez.
So again, you get a job at Walmart, and a lot of times people do, they might choose it as their career, but they also might be choosing it because they know that they have some amazing benefits, including educational benefits, healthcare, mobility, financial literacy. I mean, there's so many really interesting things. And then also remember, what if English wasn't your first language and now you have 300 pages to read? 300 pages. And then what if it was a more complex language like Mandarin or something from a Middle Eastern country? Like, who's going to explain all this to you? Do they have all those benefits people and someone's going to explain it to you? No. So they're using AI, and it's very, very simple tool. So people can, again, it's called NLP, natural language processing. So that means in your dialect, in your voice, you can just ask a question. So can I get IBF? Do I have pet insurance? Is it going to pay for my technical class in motor reconstruction? Whatever. And it will answer your questions. What a gift that is to their employees. Because if you have 300 pages of benefits, that's costing them a lot of money. And then imagine if you needed mental health support. You might not know who to ask or where to go. And they probably have 7 different types of mental health capabilities that they're offering. But if you can't read it, either just because it's too long or too complicated, you're not going to take advantage. So that's a great, simple example. And they've been doing that for about 2 years now. So every time I tell that to someone, they're like, oh, that sounds pretty helpful.
That sounds really helpful, because I could just, if you, I'm so excited. I just got a job at Walmart and I'm going to go for my orientation. And then they go, poof, they drop this book in front of you. And,
and that's the other problem. It's not a book. It's a digital. And, I don't know everyone's computer literacy, or you don't know everyone's bandwidth to go through 300 pages. Plus, who has the patience? You're tired. You come home from work, or maybe you have one computer and your kids are using it for their homework, and you're like, "Hey, let me check my benefits package." You're like, it's not really how you want to spend your time.
Okay. So now you got me excited. So let me ask you this. So I decided I've got 1,100 and some odd episodes up, and I decided to catalog them. And now, do I need to do that? Can AI help me with that? How does that work? So that if I were to put like an AI bot on positivetalkradio.net, will they help me categorize that, or do I got to go through episode by episode to pick out how it works?
So AI is not a person or a thing. It's, there's multiple brands of AI, and they're called large language models. And then there's another whole tree of what all those models are called. But it's based on data. So you need to decide who's going to own your data. And then we'll just say for simplistic purposes, mine your data and organize your data. And so, yes, you can buy programs, or now there's a lot of companies out there that have secure applications that specialize in your area, or maybe we're talking about contracts, real estate. Since we had a real estate person on here, there's a program and a system that specializes in a company that specializes in real estate contracts. So there's different companies out there that have already developed those models and those searches and the prompts, and most importantly, the security. That's number one. And that would be my advice. I wouldn't try to do all these things on your own. Now, what I also ask people to always think about, it's a little bit different when you're a solopreneur, but for most companies, they are using like Microsoft's or Salesforce or SAP. So they're called SaaS systems. And those companies do offer a lot of these intuitive kind of do it yourself, try this data set and put it here, and then you could do these things. They actually have all those things and systems already laid out for their users. So that's another option. But I also would say anything that's free, nothing's free. So don't sign up for anything that's free. Make sure you're really clear on the terms of service. But that would be how I would go about it with my quick 2-minute idea.
Well, and by the way, Marva, I've been thinking about a way, and you've just turned a bit of a light on for me, because I have got a ton, and I mean a ton, of intellectual property. It's all got my voice attached to it. It's all with an interview that I did, and I've got, like, with the other show that I've done, I've got like 1,600 shows, not counting what I did in 2003, 2004, 2005, which are all sitting in a box in my closet,
yes,
in a CD form, and so. And that all that intellectual property over time has value, doesn't it?
It absolutely has value, and the reason why it has value, but it also has value that needs to be unlocked. And what's so interesting about AI, I'll give you another example. So I'm a breast cancer survivor, and one of my favorite use cases is so it's called BCRF, Breast Cancer Research Foundation. They have a huge database, and they're a nonprofit, but it's a multi-billion-dollar nonprofit, and they do research. And then each hospital, so University of Pittsburgh and Mayo Clinic and Memorial Sloan Kettering, they all have their own databases. And yes, they're all non-for-profit, but they need money for their foundation and for the researchers. So what they did is they created a data exchange, and they created a new database that now can combine and they can share. But now they have a new monetization model. And think how fast that research is now going to happen. Because if I started something at Memorial Sloan, but now University of Pittsburgh has maybe a little bit of a different case and a different twist, but if they put our data together, like, oh, we're seeing these patterns. But if we didn't have that incentive and also that easy way to combine that data, we might never have that opportunity, because again, it's expensive. So it's not just the IP, it's just the time and money of these researchers and data scientists. So that's the other area that we're really, really excited about, is new ways to collaborate.
And so there are a lot of naysayers that are like, oh, the world's going to come to an end because some robot's going to be an AI and it's going to take over the world and stuff. It's a tool, right? I mean, we can use it as a tool.
Yeah, it's data. And back to, we were talking about music earlier. So one of my favorite use cases is in London. They have an experience. They started off with Elvis. So speaking of, we were talking about how a lot of the younger generation you were finding doesn't understand some of the Ray Charles and other music. So Elvis is another great example. So they wanted to reimagine Elvis. So yes, you can watch Elvis play and you're probably going to think there's a hologram, which there is. But what if his archives, so where he grew up or how he wrote his song, and I don't know if anyone's seen the Elvis movie, and I'm not promoting it or I didn't work on it, but I watched it. And what I love so much about it is back to kind of what we were talking about earlier when we were off camera, is the inspiration. So Ray Charles, it might not be a Ray Charles song, but he heard the Ray Charles song, and then that inspired him to write a song, and then that inspired somebody else. So when you start connecting these dots and you're like, oh, wow, he was at this bar or he was at this orchestra and heard this artist, and now he did this. And now you're like, oh, I was wondering where I got that tune or got that melody or found out when to put the drums in, and then you start realizing, oh, 50 years ago someone did this, and 50 years before them they did that. And so they kind of turn it into like a living museum and an experience, and it's called multi-sensory. And kind of think about the Sphere. It's this experience in Las Vegas, and so it's a concert, but the seats move. It even has air that smells and kind of like temperature shifts. So think of all that, and back to AI. AI is taking data and using it in new ways to really just spark new ideas for people, and it keeps the human element. So that's what's so exciting. And lastly, it is expensive to run AI. Like, it's very expensive as far as the data centers and the power, but as far as when you're a user, it just seems like a click of a button. And a lot of times it is. And so a lot of this magic behind, you're not paying for it at this point. And it is very, very quick. And things that connections, like you're saying, your data library, I bet that could be done in 3 days versus 3 years, so it's just, the time is just amazing what we can do with this new data fuel. Just kind of think of it that way.
Well, and when you were talking about that, you reminded me, and I need to take our final break, but you reminded me of, who the Beatles are, and
Yes.
the Beatles grew up in a town called Liverpool. Liverpool is one of the largest marine bases and where a lot of ships come through from the United States, and they go to the port at Liverpool. That's where they learned. That's where they got Chuck Berry's music, and they got the Crickets music and some of those things. So it's kind of the same sort of thing, because they was introducing them to something that was brand new to them. It wasn't, but to them it was. And then they translated and transformed it into their own style. That's been happening for a long time, hasn't it?
It has. And after the break, I'd love to tell you my Beatles AI story, because that's a really good one.
Oh, I'd love to hear that. So we need to take this quick break and listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. This is something that we produced, and I think it's got value. The strength of staying kind from your friends at Positive Talk Radio. Kindness is not weakness. It takes real strength to stay kind in a world that often rewards anger, ego, and control. Being kind means choosing to act from your values, not your wounds. It means showing grace even when no one's watching. But kindness doesn't mean being passive. It doesn't mean letting people take advantage of your time, your energy, or your peace. You can be kind and still say no. You have a soft heart with firm boundaries. The strongest people I know are the ones who choose compassion without losing themselves. They've been hurt. They've been tested. And still, they choose to love and lead and to lift others anyway. Kindness is not about pleasing everybody. It's about honoring who you are and how you treat others, even when it's hard. So stay kind, stay human, and stay strong. And always remember this: be kind to one another, because each other's all we've got. And we're talking with Marva Bailer. Marva, what did you think of that little piece?
I loved it. The whole part about, being kind. It's from your heart, but I also, you actually had an example about compassion, but you had an example about saying no. And so one of my ethos is, if you say no, you always pass that opportunity to somebody else. Like it's sort of like you own it and then you're going to pass it. And then also the reverse, when you say yes to something, you always bring someone with you. And a lot of times people are like, oh, well, they only invited me. It's like, no, they only invited you, but you can invite someone and I'm sure they'll figure it out. You can invite 2 people if you want. So, and I know that's how you actually get great guests on your show. So the idea is it's always like 1 + 1 equals, 3. It doesn't equal 2. So you just gotta always think that way.
Exactly. That's right. But I'm not going to let you forget, you had a Beatles AI story. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so early on, when we all heard about ChatGPT and AI, one of the first entertainment stories that broke was about a recording from the archives where John Lennon's voice was very, very grainy, and they put it into a song. Fast forward, it actually won an award, which is also a really big deal. So a couple things. One is they did have permission to use that sound. And the way to look at it is artist's voice is like an instrument. So and they do have computer aided design to already, improve the sound. You're an editor, so you know all this. But this was actually different. So it actually took the grainy vocals and then it did exactly the scenario you had asked. Then it played it out and then they reused it and actually added more content using AI to fill in that rest of that, the lyrics. And then it won a song. Now it's called Now and Then. So it's a really amazing story, but it also is very clear on who owns what they're doing, what exactly they used AI for. And it's really just a great opportunity. I'm getting chills because the song is like, it's an amazing song. And so it's a great story.
It's one of my favorites, and I tell the story because Yoko, after John passed away, gave Paul a cassette. There were 3 songs on the cassette. One is "Free as a Bird," and I forget the other one. And then there was "Now and Then." They tried to work with "Now and Then," but they couldn't because of they didn't have the technology yet. And so not only did the Beatles, and I say this on the music show that I'm now doing on Brushwood Media Network, but not only did the Beatles do something that nobody else has ever done. In '64, they occupied the first 5 spots of the top 40 positions, 1 through 5. Nobody's ever done that before. And Now and Then became a #1 song 50 years after the Beatles broke up.
50 years. It's amazing. And back to, when we were talking, that this is how you connect generations. When you literally have an 80-year-old singing something and then they recreate it, so you could say, hey, this is inspired by John, but it was, technically it was an AI, editor that did it. And it's amazing opportunity. And so that way we don't lose those voices. We have those voices. And as you know, you're an artist. This is poetry. So we want to keep these poets alive. And when you have songs and images, it just gets in people's heads. And that's how we can walk around on a regular basis and be kind to people.
Yeah, it just amazes me that John Lennon died 45 years ago. George Harrison died in the late 90s. And the music came out in like 2023, and they're all there. And it's like something of it's lost in time, but it was saved. And it's remarkable. So we can use AI as a positive tool to create things that maybe have been lost to history that we can maybe recover a bit. Is that right?
Absolutely. And before we leave, I really want to make sure I touch on this use case for people really to start thinking about. So you had one of your sponsors or benefactors is Covenant House. You had an ad play. So human trafficking is all about data, and the use of AI to help both the government and private industry to find really bad actors and to pinpoint so we can put our law enforcement people in the right places is game changing. Back to the cost. It really is reducing the amount of people, because we're not reducing people because we don't have the amount of people to solve this horrible, awful global problem. So it actually is putting more resources in the right places, and it's real time, and it's just an incredible opportunity. And then for homelessness, food banks, I work with a nonprofit here in Atlanta that's a global nonprofit. They provide technology to nonprofits. They work with Feeding America. Think about that. So you have inventory, but it's perishable inventory. And then you have a supply chain, and you need to get it from point A to point B. And then you are in the chicken business, so you need to have nutritional information and refrigeration. I mean, there's just all this distribution and health and whatever. I mean, there's so many regulations. So how do you do that? AI is absolutely helping these nonprofits, and it's helping them at a very low cost. A lot of the larger companies are giving resources away through a lot of their altruistic programs, and it is game changing for nonprofits. Assigning beds, mental health services. It's just, the list goes on and on. So if you ever are complaining about AI, pause for a moment and find out how your nonprofit is using it or is going to be using it. And it will just, you'll go, oh, this is amazing.
I just had a thought. And in the United States, and maybe somebody will use AI to work with this, but grocery stores throughout the United States have got pull dates on everything. Mm-hmm. And they pull stuff and it may not be bad yet, but they pull it because it doesn't look quite right or whatever, but it's still nutritionally sound stuff. If there was a way to connect nonprofits and grocery stores with products and that are short-term shelf life, that the nonprofit could then turn around quickly and get it to people quickly, that seems to me to be a great way, because if you go to any dumpster behind any grocery store in the United States and look through that dumpster, you're going to find food that's, well, a lot of homeless people do this. They dumpster dive for food. So that would be a great way for nonprofits and for-profit businesses to connect, wouldn't it?
I'm already aware of one nonprofit that actually does that here in Atlanta. And I think I have the name right. It's Gooder, if I'm saying it right. And I'm more than happy to share it with anybody here listening. And that's exactly where, so she actually got the idea from, it wasn't grocery stores per se, but and she does work with grocery stores, but her original idea was from airport convenience stores and grocery stores, because they have really fast turnover of their food. And as you know, if like there's a snowstorm or something and no one goes to the airport for 3 days, literally all their inventory is in that situation. So that was how she originally got the idea. And now she does work with restaurants and with grocery stores. So people, these big problems, that's what's so cool. You just said it's data, because they have SKUs on them. The SKUs have information about the simple things as the expiration date and or more data of where it came from, when it came there, how it needs to be refrigerated, or maybe it's other shelf life attributes. So all that is data. And with AI, we can basically think about it. You can you can connect that data a lot faster and ask those questions like, what about this? Why can I do this? How can I do this? And when you're asking the data questions, that's where AI can really help put those things together very quickly and make things actionable. The other area that I really love about AI, so a lot of these systems you're talking about, Kevin, are large, manufacturing, global. You talked about lawyers. AI is iterative. It's a hard word to say, but it's iterative, which means tiny steps, and you can correct as you go. And usually when we have these big ideas or using big expensive technology, we plan, and then we have this big reveal, and then everything has already changed. And that's what's been so interesting with AI is we can try a little bit and go, this is about 90% of what I want, but I would rather, just like we're talking today, you're like, well, what if I could do this? And then I go back with my team, or maybe on the spot we tried, and you're like, oh, yes, yeah, I want that. But as you know, you don't know what you don't know until you see it or start experiencing it.
That is so true. And with AI, you can actually be unexpected. And you like how I did that there?
Be
Anyway,
unexpected, be creative, be fun, and be positive.
Marvin Bailer has been our guest. Go to marvabailer.com and find out all about her. Get her book, Be Unexpected, because to be expected and to be normal just is not as much fun as doing something unique and different and memorable. So get the book. Marva, thank you so much. Is there anything? We're running out of time, but I'd love to take a minute for you to tell our audience anything you'd like them to know.
I would like them to always be open, ask great questions, and keep on learning.
That is keep on learning. Well, we have to keep on learning until we don't, which means that we're dead, because we're never going to learn it all.
No, you're not.
So, Marva, thank you so much for being here. You've been awesome.
Thank you, Kevin. Have a great day, and goodbye to everyone. And it's not goodbye, it's hello, and great to meet you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to have a great day. Say I have a show. It's called anyway. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. That's Kevin@kmmedia.pro.